A Complaint by William Wordsworth appeared in the 1807 collection Poems in 2 volumes, and is widely accepted to explore the falling out of the poet with his best friend, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The pair had met in 1795 and immediately become fast friends, inspiring, criticising, and influencing each other's poetry. In 1798, they jointly published a collection entitled Lyrical Ballads, an early influential work in what was to become known as the Romantic movement in literature and the arts, which was popular from the last decade of the 18th century through the early decades of the 19th. The movement's followers rejected the cold, scientific and unemotional approach of the period of enlightenment which had preceded it, and focused instead on the emotions of the individual, their subjective experience, and their spiritual connection with nature. There were a number of pressures on the relationship between the pair, notably their artistic differences. But it was Coleridge's surprising of Wordsworth in bed with Wordsworth's sister-in-law, Sarah Hutchinson, with whom Coleridge was passionately in love, on the 27th of December 1806, that sparked the rift, subsequently made worse by Coleridge's addiction to opium, a drug which was used as a painkiller, a relaxant, and an antidepressant, which he had begun to take for toothache, and the two didn't reconcile until 1823. In the poem, the speaker laments the loss of the love of an unspecified person which has left him emotionally and spiritually poor. He likens it to a free-flowing fountain, which had provided him with many moments of happiness, but which has now sunk deep into the earth in the form of a well. The fact that the love may still be there, deep down but silent and unreachable, does not ease his suffering and is, therefore, no consolation. The poem comprises 3 sestets, or stanzas of 6 lines. It has a bass meter of iambic tetrameter, di-dum, 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 to which Wordsworth adheres throughout, and a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, C. Most lines are end-stopped, although he does modulate the rhythm in places with several instances of enjambment and more numerous instances of caesura. His use of figurative language centres on an extended metaphor, where the properties of water, with its fluidity and associations of being cleansing, refreshing and restorative, firstly in the guise of a fountain and then in the guise of a well, communicates his experiences of love when it is freely given and then when it is withdrawn. The poem has a circular structure, where words and images from the first stanza, e.g. change, door, fond heart and poor, are revisited in the final stanza, and suggest that the poet feels stuck in his sense of misery with no way out of it. Wordsworth's diction is plain, with a large proportion of the words he uses being monosyllabic, i.e. of one syllable, which helps to suggest the simple rawness of his emotions. Although the tone of the poem is somewhat gloomy, he nevertheless lends it a sense of musicality with sound patterning techniques such as alliteration, e.g. deep and dry, alliteration and consonants used together, e.g. fountain and fond, and blessed and bliss, and sibilants, e.g. sleep in silence and obscurity, as well as a repetition technique known as anadiplosis, where a word from the end of one line is repeated at the beginning of the next, e.g. whose only business was to flow, and flow it did. The title, A Complaint, is a simple one. A complaint is, in everyday language, an expression of grief, pain and resentment. In terms of literature, a complaint or plaint is a genre of poetry popular in the Middle Ages, where the speaker laments or grieves very deeply over unrequited or unreturned love, or a personal misfortune or misery. The poem begins with a compound sentence comprising two simple declarative clauses. There is a change, and I am poor. Note the way in which Wordsworth employs a caesura here to separate them very decisively, to perhaps suggest the dramatic nature of what has happened. Whatever this change is, it has had an unwelcome negative impact on the speaker, who is now poor because of it. Although whether this is financially or spiritually, we are not yet sure. He continues, Your love hath been, nor long ago, a fountain at my fond heart's door. Wordsworth now introduces his extended metaphor of love as water. Here it has been up until recently, nor long ago, a fountain close to his own fond heart's door. Note the combined alliteration and consonance here of fountain and fond, to evoke the strong bond of affection and affinity between the pair, and the way in which he suggests, through the image of the door, that the heart is the home where love lives. The only business, of course, of a fountain is to flow, and flow it did. Note how the euphony of the repeated voiceless fricative f sounds in the stanza so far. Fountain, fond, and the two instances of flow, and the anadiplosis of to flow and flow it did. Fight against the end stopping and caesura, which pull up the rhythm to make it choppy. To perhaps suggest the conflict the speaker feels as he revisits a time of happiness which is no more, communicated by the past tense, and flow it did. The speaker goes on to explain that the love of his friend was a seemingly endless supply, with no measure taken either of how much was given or of how much was taken. An idea which is enhanced by the poem's first instance of enjambment, which allows the line to flow unrestricted, not giving heed of its own bounty or my need. The second stanza begins with two exclamations. What happy moments did I count? Blessed was I then, all bliss above. To indicate the depth of his emotion as he recalls the pleasant times they had together, and how they made him feel blessed or fortunate, with the words blessed and bliss above enhanced by their combined alliteration and consonance, suggesting that there was something heavenly or divine about what this friendship added to his life. The adverb now, which begins the third line of the stanza, indicates, however, that he has switched his attention to his current situation, where he asks, in a rhetorical question, for that consecrated fount of murmuring, sparkling, living love, what have I? Note the use of the adjective consecrated, another word for blessed, to describe the fount or source of murmuring, sparkling, living love. The enjambed line followed by the asyndetic triad of present participles, murmuring, sparkling, living in this clause, evokes a beautiful image of the water as it cascades. The soft euphony of the onomatopoeic murmuring, the glinting and gleaming vibrancy of sparkling, and the alliteration of the liquid l sounds in living love, create a pleasantly flowing rhythm. This, however, is abruptly cut off by another much shorter rhetorical question to finish the line, which creates a caesura. Shall I dare to tell? The speaker's use of the verb dare here suggests that he feels the need to be courageous, to say out loud what has become of their relationship, as though putting it into words and hearing it said is shocking and painful for him. He reveals what he has been left with instead of the fountain, a comfortless and hidden well. The water, or his love, has retreated far beneath the earth where it can neither be seen nor reached. The adjective comfortless suggests how the speaker feels totally bereft and alone. We now understand what he means when he says that he is poor. Once more the poet employs anadiplosis, where the word well, which appears at the end of the second stanza, also appears at the beginning of the third. A well of love, it may be deep, I trust it is, and never dry. Note the use of dashes here, which create caesurae to break up the rhythm, to communicate the speaker's newfound uncertainty. Rather than the evidence of his own eyes, he can only trust now that even though he can no longer enjoy the love, it will always be there and never run dry. Although, he concedes, this is actually irrelevant, as it is no good to him like that. What matter if the waters sleep in silence and obscurity? Note how Wordsworth personifies the waters here, suggesting perhaps that the person who has removed their love is oblivious to the pain the speaker is feeling. The quietly hissing sibilance in these lines seems to enhance the water's now static and voiceless nature. The poem concludes in much the same place as it began. Such change, and at the very door of my fond heart, hath made me poor. The repetition of the words and images from the first 3 lines of the poem, creating a circular structure, suggests that the speaker is trapped within his own world of misery, unable to move forward to a place of acceptance. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.